As I watch my kids grow up, I'm realizing that I'm growing up with them. And this is something I've been thinking about a lot as my daughter, who is my youngest, continues to get older. This has been kind of like an ongoing awareness and not necessarily like a specific event or thing that happened that made me realize this. I'm just starting to see that as my daughter gets older, my identity is shifting a little bit, and I'm starting to wonder what life is going to look like once I'm not constantly in mom mode. Being a mom has always been my first priority, and I'm starting to notice that the needs that they have are shifting a lot. And my youngest, my daughter, is sort of in like that in between stage where she's 16, but she's not driving yet, but she has a very active social life. She has a very active theater life. She's a theater kid, so she's always going to rehearsals. And she just had a performance this past weekend. So there's a lot involved, but I'm also seeing that we only have a couple of years left. She's going into her junior year of high school in the fall, and things are going to change very quickly. So, what does that mean for me? I think as parents, we tend to put our needs aside a lot for our children. And that has certainly been true, especially the past few years, just as, my daughter has had a lot going on. And I've put aside a lot of things that I would like to do for myself because I know that she doesn't have this time forever. And I want her to have every opportunity possible for her. And I think it's okay to, kind of set our own needs aside for our kids, but always being mindful that there are things that we might enjoy that we can either fit into our lives or just sort of put on hold until some of our time frees up again. There's such an emotional layer to this too, because I'm so incredibly proud of my kids, and especially watching my daughter grow up right now and do so many amazing things. I'm just so grateful for that, for the friendship that she and I have. I really cherish the closeness that we have. I know that not all moms and teenage daughters have that, so I am incredibly grateful for it. But I do sometimes miss the little girl that she was, and the cute little things that she said, and her ways of talking, and her little snuggles, and I miss all of that, but I'm also just so proud of the young woman that she's becoming. There's a lot of uncertainty around what comes next because she has 2 years left of high school, and then we don't know what the future holds for her. Right now she's talking about staying home for the first 2 years of college. We have a great opportunity locally where one of the colleges actually offers free tuition for the first 2 years. So we'd be crazy to turn that down. But also, she has some really big dreams. She's a very talented actress and singer and dancer, and she has Broadway dreams. She has performance goals and just a lot of things that she wants to do. So who's to say, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, she may be in New York. She may be performing on a cruise ship. She might be, somewhere else. Who knows? But that uncertainty also sort of adds to the emotions, because I don't know how much time I have left with her as my child in my care. So I've had to let go a little bit, and especially at this age when children become teenagers and start forming relationships and friendships and a life outside of our family home. And it's wonderful to watch that and to see all of the amazing friendships that my daughter has, all of the people who truly care about her and love her. But it's also, it almost feels like losing her a little bit. And I know that's what's supposed to happen. And, again, very, very happy for her and proud of her. But it's also difficult because having to let go not only of her, but of that piece of me that is mom. And, of course, I'll always be mom. My mom will always be my mom. I will always be my daughter's mom. But again, that role shifts and changes, and it can be stressful and painful and scary and just overall a difficult shift. Now, while all of this is going on, I am becoming more and more aware that my daughter is growing up, and on the cusp of moving on and moving out and building her own life. And so in turn, I'm looking at my own life and where I can start to expand a little bit, where I can start to fill that gap and those holes that I'm beginning to feel, as I feel her kind of, moving on. And so I've been very focused on my health. Obviously, I talk about running a lot, and that's something I've really been focused on because, I have my training runs every week. I've been signing up for races just to kind of keep my momentum going. And then I have a very big goal next January of running the Dopey Challenge at Disney, which, if you're not familiar, it's a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, and then a full marathon over the course of 4 days. So it's a really big challenge. I know a lot of people who have done it. I've always kind of thought about it, but I figured, you know what? I turn 50 next year. This could be something really cool that I do to sort of commemorate that. On top of that, I will also be celebrating 10 years cancer free. I am a thyroid cancer survivor. And so I will be running this challenge to raise money for the American Cancer Society. So that's one thing that I'm really focused on right now, both my training and my fundraising for that. So, those are the kinds of things that I'm looking forward to, and they're for me. I mean, obviously, like, I'm raising money, so it's not just about me, but it's something that I'm doing for me and not necessarily for my children. Although I do like to think that when I do things like this, I set an example for them. Other things that I'm doing, obviously, I started building this brand back in January. I do weekly videos. I write an essay every week. I am posting to TikTok and Instagram. So those are things also that are kind of just mine. Like, it's just something that I'm doing for me, again, with the hope that all of these like action goals that I create will set a good example for my kids while I'm also building something for myself. Right now, my life still kind of revolves around my daughter's schedule. And it's funny, I had a friend message me yesterday asking if I could go to an event with her in a couple of weeks. And I said, yes, let me just check my schedule. And then I said, and by schedule, I mean, let me check with my daughter because she's sort of the one who controls the calendar. She has, plans with friends. She has rehearsals. She has performances. It's getting to the end of the school year, so there are events at her high school. There's just a lot going on, and so I need to be there to drive her, to support her. And I am not complaining because I love all of that. And I am also becoming more and more aware that this phase is temporary. And so all of this time with her and all of these activities and all of this like joy that she has around all of these things that she's doing is not necessarily always going to be. As she gets older, she's going to have more responsibilities and she's going to have a job, and she's not going to need me to drive her because she'll be driving herself. And so all of this is temporary. And so I'm soaking it all in as much as I can. So I'm becoming much more aware as time goes on that this time with her is temporary, that my role is not going to be the same as it is right now. And I'm just trying to really enjoy that time with her while also preparing for whatever is next for her and for me and for our family as a whole. Now, one thing that I'm always focused on and always will be focused on is the example that I'm setting for my children. It's really important to me that I model the behavior that I would like to see in them. So I'm aware of that in the way that I speak to them, in the way that I speak to others, in the way that I speak about others, in the way that I speak about myself. That's always been a big one, especially with my daughter when I talk about my health or my weight or the way that I'm eating, because I don't ever want her to feel like her weight or her appearance is tied in any way to her worth. And especially now that she's a teenager, I think that that's really important. But I have also been someone who has struggled with her weight. I've been someone who is conscious about what I eat. And so when I talk about that, I talk about it in a way that focuses more on health and not on weight. So sometimes she'll ask me, like, Mom, can't you just, drive through McDonald's or something? And I'll explain to her, well, no, because I feel my best when I eat this way or whatever. And it's not that I don't ever eat McDonald's or don't ever eat, fast food or junk food or anything like that. But most of the time, I eat in a way that supports my health, supports my running and supports my goals overall for my fitness. So that's how I explain it to her. And sometimes like we have fun with carb loading. Like she'll like kind of laugh at me if I'm like drinking regular Coke or eating candy or something. And I just tell her like this is kind of the fun part of being a runner, is that when I have a big race coming up, I get to do this kind of stuff. But again, I don't frame it as like it's something bad outside of that. I just, I kind of let her do her own thing. And I think that it's really important to model that, especially for girls, not talking constantly about weight loss or shaming myself for how I look, or anything like that, because I certainly don't want that to rub off on her. But I also really try to set an example of being kind to others, following through on things, having empathy, being open-minded. Like those are the kinds of values that I want to instill in my kids, and that's something that no matter how old they are, I want to continue just showing them how to do that. And the other thing that is really important to me is to not stay stagnant. I want them to see that even though I'm an older woman, I can still set goals for myself. I can still build habits that bring me towards a goal, or some sort of outcome that I'm hoping to achieve, without putting too much pressure on myself, without putting pressure on them, like, oh, I'm doing this, you should do it too. Just showing them what's possible, just showing them that there are ways to achieve things that maybe you didn't think were possible before, because I've been able to do that, and I know that they can too. And I always want them to see and know that I believe in them. And when my kids were younger, I think I was just like so wrapped up in being mom, and in volunteering in their classrooms, on chaperoning field trips, on packing their lunches, and doing all of the activities and birthday parties, and all of that stuff. And I'm learning now. I mean, I have been learning over the past several years that as they get older, that role of motherhood really sort of evolves, and you have other kids who are brought into the mix, where her friends and influences outside of us, and just being able to kind of roll with that, and stay open-minded, because she's going to get other perspectives from other kids and parents and teachers and other adults that they may be involved with in activities and things like that. And I think that really just like keeping that open dialogue is really important. And my kids know they can come to me and talk to me about anything. I won't be judgmental. I won't admonish them for thinking a different way from me or anything like that. And just knowing that we can talk through things that might be difficult or confusing for them. And I think because of that, in turn, it's sort of helped me to grow up a little bit too, because I'm exposed through them to these other perspectives, and other ways of thinking about things, other ways of doing things. And, instead of being so like stuck and rigid, I've been able to evolve a little bit too. And I'm sort of like evolving with them, which is kind of cool. I really like that. I really enjoy, just kind of being part of that whole process. And I've seen a lot of other women navigating this as well. We tie a lot of our identity into being a mother. When you become a mother, it's so exciting and overwhelming and scary, and like all of these different emotions. And then you kind of start to get the hang of it. And then as you're getting the hang of it, everything changes. And that's happened, over and over and over again. And it's just sort of interesting to see that change. But when you really tie in your whole identity to being a mom, and then your kids start to get older and don't need you anymore, it can start to feel like you're questioning that whole identity. Like, who am I? What am I doing? What do I do next? I don't know what to do with myself. And, I feel that on a daily basis. So I can only imagine that many other women do as well. You can truly start to feel lost when that motherhood persona starts to shift a little bit, because every time that your child changes a little bit, maybe they go to a different school, they're doing a different activity, they might be struggling with something, maybe school or friendships or relationships, or there are so many different things that kids can struggle with, and they feel it so much more because they don't have the perspective that we as adults have, that things can get better. Like every time something bad happens, it's like a huge catastrophe. because they just don't see that it's just a very small blip in time for them. So, being able to adjust to that, being able to support them through that, you do feel needed, but as they get older, that need starts to dissipate a little bit. And that's where you can start to feel lost. And I think that a lot of women do struggle with that. And it can be really hard to reconnect with who you truly are outside of being that mom figure. So I'd like to think that the biggest takeaway from this video is that you are allowed to grow alongside of your kids. Just because you're a parent doesn't mean that you are like the all knowing, have all the answers person. You are allowed to change and grow and thrive with them. And in fact, I think it's important to do that because as they grow and change, their needs also change. And so you have to be able to adapt to that so that you can be the best parent possible for them. But also thinking ahead, I'm starting to wonder what I want my life to look like after my daughter, flies the nest and, goes on to college, gets her own place, builds her own life. And as much as that's difficult for me to think about, I know that it's coming. I know that it's inevitable. And I'm trying to prepare emotionally as much as I can. Like even talking about this just kind of gets me a little bit like choked up. But I know that it's the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to raise our children to become adults, and that's what's happening. And so what does my life look like once that happens? What does my marriage look like? Where do I live? What am I doing with my free time? All of those things are crossing my mind, and that's why I've been building a few different things. This brand has been very helpful to me, and I hope to the people who have been watching my videos and my content, because for me it's been almost therapeutic to talk through these things and to sort of process it. And I hope that it's resonating with you as well if you're watching this. But also, my running and really building on that, and sort of having things to look forward to and focus on. Thinking about, some travel that I'd like to do. My husband and I have talked about, eventually getting an RV and driving across the country. That's something I've always wanted to do. And so that's something that will be possible when I'm not worried about, driving my kids everywhere and making sure that they're cared for and supported and all of those things. So, there are lots of things that I can think forward about while I am still in this season of parenting teenager. So I think it's a really good time if you're in this same season to start creating some action goals for yourself. And if you haven't seen my video on action goals, I can just give you a really quick overview. It's basically creating habits that will bring you towards whatever outcome it is that you're hoping for. So, for example, if I am going to be running a race, I create an action plan where I am, running a certain amount of times a week, and I just do that. I commit to that. And so each training run is actually an action goal that I can check off. So, that can apply to anything that you might want to do. Maybe you want to switch careers, maybe you want to retire, maybe you want to go back to school. Figure out what actions you need to take to get there, create a plan, and then follow it. And that just gives you something to really work towards and focus on. And then you can start thinking about big picture later. If once your time frees up a little bit, if your kids are leaving home, then maybe you can make those action goals bigger or longer, or you can add to it. But if you start doing it now, it won't feel so overwhelming later, and you won't feel so empty. And I know that it's really unavoidable to feel, some negative feelings around your kids leaving home. But I think that if you can build up your own, goals and things that you want to do, it makes it a little bit easier. So remember, you can and probably should grow alongside your children so that you can support them in the best ways possible. And just remember that you don't have to stay the same. Your people are always evolving. You don't have to be the same person. It's okay to try something new, to maybe add some new habits, or think of a goal that you've always wanted to accomplish and then create a plan so that you can start working toward that. Now, if this has resonated with you, and I really hope that it did, this can be a really challenging time for us moms, and I know that I've been struggling with it a little bit. So I hope that you did find this helpful. And if you did, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel because I'll be continuing to post content like this, and leave you can leave comments for me down below, and we can connect that way, and we can just support each other through this.